How's it going, everybody? My name is Zain. Today we are introducing Brooke. This is going to be our second time on Coffee, and she is going to talk to about her single that's about to come out. How's it going, Brooke?
I'm good. How are you, Zane?
Doing great. I'm doing great. I really appreciate you um reaching out to me and letting me know that you're about to drop a new single.
Yeah, of course, of course. I just remembered I really enjoyed our interview last time, and I figured that we would have a great conversation about what it's about.
Right, right. And I already hold on. I got something. First of all, I appreciate having this right here. This awesome something in the sky. This is exclusive. Love it. I'm still reading it. And it also came with a lovely CD. So guys, definitely check that out. Something in the sky. But yeah. So I was listening to the song that you sent me, and I have so many questions.
You have so many
So many
questions.
questions. Yes, yes. I had to like write it down. So many questions. Um, so the I noticed that you were talking about having some moment of peace in your head, and I thought that was awesome because we all have this intangible space head, and we fill it with want. So the fact that you demanded quiet, large space head, what exactly is in your head do you calm down? Those are the questions that kind of like
Hmm. Well, the song originated from I was just having a lot of anxiety this particular week. It was like 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I was just struggling with internal voices in my head. I mean, I think all of us struggle with like the ego voice in the head that um, really wants to keep you safe, but it doesn't say very nice things.
right,
Like it thinks that everyone's an enemy, and it thinks everyone is like has it out for you. If it depends on your past, like my past lends these voices in my head to say like that I need to protect myself at all costs. And in order to protect myself, these voices in my head will say things like, nobody cares, you're like, nobody loves you, things like that.
right.
Um, so when I wrote the song, I was just thinking about like, what are the things that I want to hear in that moment? And I think the problem with these voices in our head is that it causes us to not be present, right? We can't enjoy like all of the nuance of the present if these voices are incessant in our mind. And so that's really what the song is about for me as an artist, but also like as a person, developing relationships with people or developing new community with people. Um, that, this voice in your head can really stop you from enjoying what's available to you and enjoying the moment. So that's really why I was demanding quiet with the song. And I think so many of us, especially because of the pandemic, we've all been isolated to an extent, right?
Right.
And when you're isolated, those voices get really creative and even louder. So,
Oh, they do
uh,
get louder, especially when you have this whole plan and all of a sudden, yeah, no one's gonna come out. No, and most of the stuff that you would like to have is a lot of collaborative stuff. So when people are going through their stuff based on what's going on, and oh man, they can't do it with you. That means like, guess we're gonna have to put this in the backboard, and guess we'll have to wait. And then that's when the imposter syndrome. Like, granted, you could do it by yourself, but it's just like some reason. Sometimes we get so used to doing. So then when it
mhm.
comes back to doing it by yourself, we space, feeling isolated. And
Yeah, totally.
yeah, I was okay. So at this point, falling, we're healing after taking.
Mm.
So when you were falling, was it falling from life or something, issues, and then thing after that? Like, yeah, I'm gonna let you. I have a follow up.
So yeah, so in the lyrics it says like, what a soft landing.
Right.
I don't see any bruises. I must be healing. Something feels different. To me, that talks about like when you've had an experience where, like, say it's a romantic relationship, like, and you're entering a new romantic relationship with somebody, and the voices in your head are saying something along the lines of, "Oh, it's gonna fail just like last time. Like you're unlovable." All these like really mean things, right?
Right.
So verse two of the song really is talking about like when you prove your ego wrong, when when things are actually going well, and you get to be like, hey, look, you thought that I was in danger, you thought that I was falling and hurting myself, but look, I'm intact. I
Right.
took a risk and I'm intact. I took a risk to connect with someone new, and I didn't get bullied, and they haven't abandoned me. Like, what a beautiful thing it is to prove that voice wrong.
It must feel really nice. Sometimes you just gotta tell them like, you know, like I'm not listening to you, not today, not tomorrow, and then they're like, oh, what? I guess it's not working today, and I feel like it gives you some sense of inner control where you're just like, all right, well, next time, like me in my head, I kind of think like, nice try. You're gonna have to work a little harder than that. Like life just makes you stronger, so it's like just brush it off. Huh?
Right.
And I heard like as you were singing the song, I heard the progression of going through like the noise. You fell and then you brushed yourself off, and then you start questioning fear and like real danger, scared anymore. You know? So
Hmm.
I thought that was real powerful. Like you heard you like started off as like everybody else would, and as you're moving through this doubt and fear, it's like you're just brushing it off as you're going on. It's like you're essentially your persona is like being a role model for what you can be.
Yeah, I guess what I was hoping for, I'm grateful that it comes across in the song, first of all. And um it's kind of like me uh exemplifying to people that, and I've brushed this topic many times, like the song on my record, Listening, is about a similar thing. It's about like listening to the voice of the ego and seeing like, is any of this true? Like checking for evidence, checking against like um, your logic, or checking against what you know to be true. Because the ego comes up with all kinds of stories about what's happening, even if things are good, even if things are positive, it can come up with all kinds of narratives to make sure that you don't put yourself in danger. Um, and so with this song, uh, "Let It Happen" is what it's called. Um, I was hoping to like guide people through the process. Like, what are the things that I do or say to myself when I'm feeling anxious? And can you transform these thoughts into proof that it's okay to let things happen and it's okay to surrender?
Right. And I mean and I you did that in the song when you were saying like quiet on set and let love happen. You know what I'm saying? Like you said that very artistic way.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes in my mind it's like an entire, I mean, I'm a storyteller, so storytelling is just a part of also the way I think and the way I see the world. So the reason why Quiet on the Set ended up in the song is because sometimes it literally feels like a movie set in my mind, and everyone's running around like little squirrels, like freaking out, I was doing it right before this call, actually. That very thing of like every all these different variables, all these different hats that I wear, all these thoughts and ideas. Like it can feel like there's a bunch of squirrels running around in my brain.
Right.
And so, quiet on the set's like, everyone, be quiet for just 5 minutes. Can we just enjoy this moment of pleasure? Can we just enjoy this moment of silence, because the mind can be super incessant, especially if it's silent, right?
Right. Oh, like sometimes I realized like when I was trying to like people like, oh, meditate and like in silence, I realized me not talking, there was so many voices going on. It was like so many thoughts of like past, present. I'm just like, wow, there's a lot of things going on. And I think the only time I really hear quiet is essentially sleep. I like just kind of sit in silence. It's kind of hard to, you have to actually life. You're like nothing. Art form, silence.
It is. And I think it's a great goal. I don't know if it's possible. Um, I don't know if it's been possible for me. I know that often people mistake meditation for quieting the mind. And I don't wouldn't say for me that it's quieting my mind, but it's just being really aware of what's happening in my mind.
Right.
Slowing down long enough to like take stock of what the voices are saying so that you can decide what's true, what's not true. Um, is there anything dangerous here, or am I just responding to past triggers? That's also what the song's about too. It's like, am I actually in trouble? Or can I just surrender and be okay with not knowing?
That is why love can things where how to take a chance and indulge here so many way. And it's like afraid sometimes we're afraid to love. That's sometimes
Yeah, I wouldn't say I've been afraid to love, but I have been um, sometimes quick to walk away from love when see familiar patterns within myself that are not healthy.
right. Yeah, and when you realize certain things, whether it's a situation that triggers or part of yourself, kind of make stop and think about it. Kind of run and tackle it head on. I realize that I feel like sometimes I feel like a computer that's keep upgrading itself. So it's just it's wild because before it was like you comes to a point where you keep doing the same thing. So then when you figure out like wait a minute, I do start to like self as time go. That's not a character to have. That's how I've been kind of based. It's a good character to have. It's a kind of character to pass on.
Mm.
So then start practice help you positive character around you will also be a, like people would say, sometimes you just gotta understand the situation and reflect on it. Having that self reflection is definitely in terms of bettering yourself, not letting certain situations get the best of you.
Yeah. And I think that, I guess my approach with my mind and also like relationships and friendships and community is, you know, I think it was Maya Angelou who said that when people ask you how you are, have the courage to tell them.
That's tough.
It is tough, right? So I think that some ways that I've like switched my patterns is like being really honest with myself, not only about um, like how I'm doing, but being really honest with myself about what my intentions are and what I want, and then being brave enough to tell somebody. But that requires a lot of Jedi mind work, which I do all the time. And, that's why I study spiritual principles and so many different modalities of that so that I have the proper tools to navigate um, just the human experience. Because the human experience is so rife with suffering. And if we don't have tools, I know for myself, like developing tools for quieting the voices, or at least being aware of the voices, has been super helpful in helping me develop like real, strong, deep connections with people. I'm not just talking about romantically. Like, I think I have deeper friendships now because of like my honesty with self, my clarity about my values, and just keep going back to like, well, what do I value? What's important to me? Do my actions reflect that?
Right.
What do I value? And like, is this connection that I'm building with somebody moving me towards where I'm going, or does it represent where I've been? I think life requires us to be constant students.
And do you feel like if someone were to ask you a question, do you feel like you would obviously you have every right to not answer the question, but feel like you're more vulnerable to answer the question if someone close to you asks, like, "Hey, how's it going? How you doing?" Feel like you give them an accurate answer, or is it just gonna be the yeah, everything good, solid? Because some people kind of they say that to push through it, but they really don't mean. Someone had mentioned like, especially if you're in a relationship, person asks you and fine, like technically lying, and I was like, really? 'Cause you know the truth in your head, but that person takes it to oh, they're fine. And ask them, oh,
Yeah, I mean, it depends on when you ask me. If I have the emotional energy and the time to give a full response, I try to be honest in the sense that if someone says, "How are you?" and I'm just all right, I'll say, "I'm all right. I'm navigating this thing right now." Or like, I'm not afraid to say a neutral answer, which all right, I think is a pretty neutral answer, right?
right,
I also am willing to say, like, "Oh, I'm struggling a little bit today." I'm willing to say that, but also it depends on when you ask me. It depends on how loud the voices in my mind are
right,
at that very moment.
right,
Um,
right. I think so. What I got from the song because I heard it probably like several times. Um, there's there's lots of noise that happens with love, and sometimes you have to silence out and it. Um, let love guide you blissfully. That's what I got out of this.
oh, wow. I'm so glad that you retained that from the song. That's like really cool. Um, yeah, I mean, so along with this song, there will be two other singles that come out that are of a similar vein, right? They're very much like the songs are a community of their own. It's their journey. And so this first one is really like the entry point. And they're all made in my bedroom using my iPhone.
Right?
All of the songs are made original recordings, um, no auto tune, no filter, no nothing. And then they were run into a tape machine, my friend's studio, Timeless Mastering. He he helped me produce them to put them on streaming platforms. And so it's like a mixture of digital and analog together. It's a voice note, a voice memo,
Right.
and then yeah, run through tape. So I'm kind of bridging the gap between analog and digital. And part of my point with it is, especially with this first song, I didn't know that there was going to be other songs, but now there's other songs. There's two others that will come out in the next couple months.
Sweet.
My whole point with it is, I don't know about you, but I think being on the internet so much the last year has made me so unenthusiastic and so bored by the perfect release plan and the perfect like single and the like running for numbers and like this focus on getting followers and all this stuff. Like I've become so, I wouldn't say jaded, but I've just become so tired.
I get that. I
Yeah.
definitely get that because it gets very bogging because like I like to because I guess a lot of people personally because I wasn't able to go out and then right that's what kind of pulled me away from then when you're home all you have left is that so it kind of like all right that's all I get to see I guess I have to focus on my social media presence to grow. How are people gonna hear me? Social media, internet. Like that was like the one main source that we could rely on to connect to people. So luckily, things are opening up, but it's just like I definitely understand that. My job mainly is really interacting with people, especially with photo shoot filming. And reduce that, it's kind of like how I figure out different ways I could just film myself, but greatest part the, out of the photography is the actual interacting the people connect with throughout. I could always remember, amazing times. I'm sure you could elaborate with somebody. Kind of forget about the end product. It's kind of thinking about like, wow, that was such a great moment.
Mm.
Yeah, I internet definitely bogged me down. I think I was gonna ask you was I feel like some of that st- song recently.
Um, you mean just the presence of social media in in my orbit the last year? Is that what you
More,
mean?
I mean, I guess more so like the isolation aspect. Like, did that kind of isolation since kind of I want to say content, instead space, and kind of
Mm.
so many things. I know like most of my work when it came out isolation. So I said,
Mhm.
if I'm gonna feel like this, maybe I should take out. That was kind of like my therapy.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you follow me on Instagram. I was actually reflecting on it last night, just looking at some of the things I made the last year and what I shared. And I really made a dedicated effort to continue being on stage, even if there was no stage. Like I made
Yeah, I'm tuning
my,
in.
yeah, I mean, I made everything a stage. To me, the world's a stage. And so I would say with the music that is coming out this year, there's like four or five different, well, five or six different songs that will probably come out in the next 6 months. Um, I would say that being on social media definitely, and also being isolated. So being isolated caused me to be like, well, what's my voice? Because now that it's quiet, now that I'm with myself, I can decide what I want to contribute to the world. And I really don't scroll that much on social media. I contribute a lot, but I don't really like participate in it very much. I'll maybe scroll through the first five things. And part of why that is because I feel like sometimes scrolling is not a very zen activity. It's a very triggering activity. And I notice that I'm much happier when I'm just making things and sharing it openly and not focusing so much on what other people are doing.
Right.
It's not to say that I don't support my friends because I absolutely do. And I'm there like to cheer people on and participate in that sense, but I'm not there to just doom scroll into jealousy and comparison because I think that can happen so easily. And I don't know. I think some people may say that I share a lot, which I do.
Yo,
I
I
do
see
share a
you.
lot.
You're literally so consistent, especially when performing single time. Get notified. I was like, wow, every day. Wow. Like the energy, and it just lets people know that like I'm here and I'm still gonna be showcasing my music, and
Right.
this pandemic ain't gonna stop me.
Yeah, I mean, I just made an effort. It wasn't even about the ego side of it, of like wanting more people to follow me. And the songs that I'm releasing, these voice notes, or I'm going to call them love notes. That's what the EP is called. Whatever EP means, we don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
we still don't know.
um, but the whole point of it is, I feel like so often we get caught up in the method of things. How does it look? How does it like? What is it going to do for me? And I show up to social media with this idea that I have a lot of abundance to share. I have a lot of tools. I have a lot of, um, I just have a lot of ideas, and I have a lot of artistic and creative abundance to share. So with the music that I'm putting out, with these love notes or with these voice notes, like this is my like love letter to people. This is my opportunity to not just share music with them and hope they listen to it, but to make a connection and to start a conversation. Per your point about collaboration and how important it is to work with other people, I feel that social media has this idea of, I'm showing up and I have all this value. I'm going to like throw all this value out there. And I'm like, well, does creativity happen in a vacuum? I don't think so. I think it's a collaborative effort, not just with you, but your audience. And so by sharing something, you're beginning a conversation,
Right.
and you can continue to like foster that conversation through the things you share, through asking questions. And so I ask a lot of questions in my songs, and mostly it's because I like to stay in questions. I
Right.
think that's much more interesting. To stay in a question is much more interesting than an answer.
Right. Kind of like what is an EP? Because now we're just gonna be thinking about like the question is like, what is this? And then when you get the answer, it's kind of, oh, all right, cool, you know. But I guess when you love is so undefined, and certain topics such as so under that people it leaves it up to imagination, keeps on growing and growing and growing. Like we've been on this earth for X amount of years. There's billions and billions of answers on what I think love.
Hmm.
It's like there is no true answer, yet the question on what it is will always keep growing.
Yeah, and it's funny that you talk about love because like the next few songs that are coming from this collection of voice notes or voice memos um, are really about the journey to becoming love itself. And when we become love itself, love cannot be withheld from us. It cannot be taken because it's something that it just we are. And if we are it, then the method of what we do doesn't really matter as much. If we are embodying love through our creativity, if we are embodying love through our voice or through photography or whatever means you're doing it, then it doesn't matter so much if you have 100,000 followers, if you have 10 people or one person. Like you're touching their life with the love that you have that's specific to you.
Do you feel that that message is challenge? It would be so much better if I don't know. I've always said that. They tried it. Some people said on iPhones they, at first done. Obviously, people lost their mind, brought it back. It only lasts for like I think like 2 hours or so. Um, but the fact that I feel like people likes as a nation of what kind of dictates what
Right.
and remove that little validation such as likes, and you can take the views out too, and you just posting work. I feel like people get a little vulnerable and a little more open, and you could have the comments. That's cool. But I feel like people are focusing on too many. Just post it. You know, if people appreciate, it, don't let people's opinions how you.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot. And I mean, I'm not saying that I don't do it because I also like run social medias for brands and things. So, um, I mean, you respond to like, oh, this worked last time. But even as we know, the algorithm changes. So maybe this worked last time doesn't work this time. And I think what is kind of messed up about social media is that like those likes, we don't see them as people. At this point, we see them as a dopamine hit, you know? Especially if it's somebody that you like or someone that, someone you're close to or whatever, when they like it, it's an extra dopamine hit.
Right.
We're constantly seeking these means of feeling that dopamine hit. That's really what it is. And
That was such a powerful statement you said. The fact that you said that we are no longer we no longer see the likes as people, that just blew my mind because it's true. Because if you don't even especially if you don't see their names and you just see the numbers, you're not even thinking like, those are real people that like liking your stuff. But we see it as like, oh, that those are those numbers, that means good and I on get that supporting us. Looked at it. Hey, I like that. Click. That was it. But see that anymore is kind of conditioned out of it, you know? And I feel like comments were should have been the most sane see their names and it's attached to something. The likes, it's like dopamine fix. You know? God forbid you only get
yeah,
10 likes. That's gone.
well, and I'm not saying that I don't fall prey to those thoughts sometimes. I totally do. Which, even this song can be applied to that. Like, can I just have a moment to enjoy the fact that 5 people cared about my work for like 2 seconds of their day? Um, Part of why I say that we've disconnected from people is because I was speaking to another artist last summer, 2020 summer, and I said something like, I was like, 100 people is a lot of people. I said, 100 people is a lot of people. And he said, no, it's not.
It
And
really is.
it
If
really
you
is.
think about it, if
And
you visualize it in your face, like 100 people
that's
in
what I
front of you.
mean. Yeah, because I try to think of it this way. Like, if I get caught up in my head about how many people liked my thing,
Right.
I will be like, how would I feel if that many people were in my bedroom right now?
That'd be overwhelming.
Right? So when he said that, it really made me think, is 100 people a lot of people? Hell yeah, it is. Like, if 100 people showed up to my gig, my first gig back doing gigs, like, I would be positively thrilled. If 10 people showed up to my gig, I would give them the same show.
Right. Now, I guess it all depends on the space that people, I guess, created for like Instagram space. Like, how big do you think? Like, if your account had a space, how big do you think that venue? And I feel like people think that venue is like as big as maybe Madison Square Garden. You know what I'm saying? So when you
Carnegie
say,
Hall.
"Oh yeah, Carnegie," so when you say like 100 people, they're thinking if you put 100 people in Madison Square Garden or Carnegie Hall, that's not a lot of people. But when you said in your room, now that's overwhelming.
Right. And I think that it's really upsetting that the byproduct of the rise of social media and the need for connection and this desire for affirmation as artists, because we're not getting that in-person dopamine hit. We're getting this like secondhand smoke of connection. That's really what it is. It's not fully, because I know how different it is now when I see someone in person and give them a hug, like how much more satisfying that is than having someone press a heart button on an app. Like,
Yeah, that's completely different. That would actually change someone's day. If you were to ask someone like, would you rather 100 hugs or X? I'm pretty sure
hugs.
hugs is gonna win by
Well, it
far.
depends on the person.
It
I
depends.
don't know.
Yeah,
100
obviously,
hugs is a lot. 100 hugs a lot, especially now. I'm like really not used to being touched by people, so it might be different. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's unfortunate, and especially as artists, I think the idea of like releasing singles and music has just become very rote at like now, especially because we've all been on it for so long. There's like these templates that people are using to share, and I'm not saying I'm not going to use some of those templates to share the single. Of course, like I'm participating in a system. I know how this works. But I guess the way I'm breaking the system is that I made a voice note. I decided I wanted to release it on all platforms because I sent it directly to people, to my friends. I sent it to them directly to say, "Hey, like I hope that this finds you well. Here is something I made that I was excited about. I'm sharing it with you." And so many of my friends responded by saying like, "Wow, that was so like, tender and heartfelt. Like that really like touched me and all the stuff." And I was like, "Wow, so see, it didn't have to be a super produced song. It didn't have to be this perfect selfie on a cliff with like, but though I mean my promo photos and the song are like very high low. You know, I did a high low for everything. It was like um I'm wearing like a fancy dress, and the New York skylines in the background. So it's a little fancier, right? But um, I guess my whole point with it was to say like that if the message is heartfelt and pure, if what you're saying means something to you, it potentially can mean something to a lot of people, or maybe just one person. And I think that that's enough. Like I have more produced singles coming out later this year. I have those they were ready to go. And yet this happened, right? Where
Right.
I made this voice note and something in me said, someone else needs to hear this.
And I think felt followed your heart, and your heart is like, yes, thank you for dropping it, because it gets to the point because I have certain things in my head that's comedy, and I'm thinking to myself like I see another person that does comedy skits on Instagram, and he's this is not even no type of just a cell phone, a ring light, and those backgrounds that are like the ones that come with the app and whatnot, and he just kept on doing it. Eventually, he got so popular. Eventually, he's probably gonna get verified. But like my head was like, oh, I gotta have the lights. I gotta have this. I gotta have that. And then that because I was having those film thoughts, I'm like, oh, that's overwhelming. I don't even do it. Or if I do it, it's gonna be a while before I do the next one. But the fact that vulnerability is like I'm out there. The whole point is to make people laugh. It wasn't meant to be this Oscar-winning feature film comedy skit. Just
Yeah. And that's really the point with these three voice notes is that I'm telling a story, and the story is about how can we love ourselves and navigate our internal and external experience with the kind of gentleness and tenderness that allows us to grow deep roots, because the tree grows as tall as the roots are deep. And social media is deep and it's not. It can be shallow.
Right.
And we can participate in the shallowness if we want, or we can bring depth. And especially during the pandemic,
Mhm.
I've resisted that like surface level so much. And I just don't really exist there. I don't really exist on the surface level. Even if I post a selfie, I've said this to a few friends recently that honestly, I don't feel very much when people admire the way I look. I don't feel anything about it, you know. I mean, not to say I love fashion, I love art. I love using my physical body as a canvas for sharing messages. Sure, of course. I'm not going to say that I'm above posting a selfie because I'm not. Are any of us? I don't know. But I just feel like what I've been frustrated by with social media sometimes is that my selfies will get more traction on the algorithm because of whatever reason, the algorithm, and like my writing or my paintings maybe won't get as much, which is interesting, but it also doesn't stop me from sharing my paintings or my writing. I still do it.
Side note: your paintings are dope, and
Oh, thank you.
I don't. I just find I just it's interesting because you have the music that you use. Like for some reason, I thought you would your art style would be kind of like more like not as abstract, which is interesting. Like it's like completely two opposites, like which is dope. And you see, like if you really pay attention, you kind of like you could see a vibe of what's going on in the picture. Like it's like painted it with emotion, and I think
Hmm.
that's pretty dope. But that's just a little my side note.
That's not a side note. I really appreciate that feedback so much because, that's a new it's not a new art form for me. It's a new art for me form for me that I'm sharing. So I've been painting and making art since I was young, and but music ended up being something I was more focused on. And so the fact that you sense the emotional depth in the paintings like really means a lot to me because when I'm painting, I'm really thinking very deeply about what I'm doing and my why. And again, it's the same as my songwriting in the sense that I'm like, how do I feel right now? And like, will someone else feel the same thing? Or maybe they'll feel something different, which is what's cool about music and art in general is that everyone has their own interpretation of it. And the cool thing about paintings is you either get it or you don't. And if you don't get it, then you move on. I guess that's with all art forms, but I think what I love about painting, as I'm looking at like there's paintings everywhere in here. I don't know. I think that with the abstract side, I love leaving it up to people to decide what the poetry of the painting is.
and keep on doing it because I feel that works well, especially with your is that it's up to them. Don't just like, all right, that's a circle. Y'all know what a circle is. But your painting is very. I can see so many things, and then someone else like, oh, I just see blank. It's like, but then the next person sees something different. Eh? It's like, let's keep this going. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that
Yeah,
could easily be like an album art for like most of your songs.
yeah. I mean, it's a conversation, right? So I think my paintings are a conversation inside of my mind that I'm sharing with others. I mean, my music is too. And the album cover for Let It Happen does feature some of my visual art. So just so
Sweet.
you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, what I had a question. How what exactly? No, not what exactly. Do any of your tracks express a point of different persona characters?
Yeah, I mean, I think they all can be considered different characters or different stories, right? I would say that even amongst these three voice notes that I'm releasing, you can tell there's like a difference between song one versus song three. I feel like there's a confidence level that's built between those two songs, um, in the way that I sing it, but also just there's a difference in tonality or vibe between, because it's like a progression. So the first song is like, I'm struggling with my internal voice right now. And I'm just going to let things happen. I'm just going to surrender. And then what happens when you surrender is, wow, that's so scary. So song two is kind of about quelling fear, finding ways to take your fear and turn it into something, turn it into love, turn it into art, turn it into something. And then by the time you get to song three, it's like now if you have this piece of being love, navigating the internal voice, uh, noticing your fears, and then transforming them into love. Once you get to the last song, it kind of leaves you in this recognition that you're going to have to start all the way back at the beginning some days. You're not going to be, it's a cycle. So I guess the songs are represent a cycle, and there's going to be certain people that resonate with one of them. Some people will resonate with all of them. Um, to me, it's a cycle, it's a circle. So it's like I have I have recognized that I am overwhelmed by my thoughts. I'm going to surrender instead. Part two. Okay, like I still have fear. Even though I'm surrendering, I'm still freaked out. And
Right.
I can be at peace with that because I know that I can turn that fear into love. And then the last song is about like that feeling of like coming home. That feeling of, okay, well, I'm love itself, so nothing can be taken from me. I can accept that this is what it is, and I can accept you. I can accept me in this moment. And then we start back at the beginning because goodness knows we always go back to like being struggling with our thoughts, you know.
Right. And I actually I relate to the love aspect. I actually wrote a poem on love, and it was more so on it gave love a persona. Hired when
Mm.
I wrote the poem, I wasn't in love. So when is so the weird part is when I write like poetry, it ends up just kind of dropping it as a story, opposed to being taking it from a place and actually I don't. I guess I would say I don't really put my emotion into. I'm just kind of painting a picture, and then to me, interesting to see love just kind of off and tired of you guys abusing my name instance. Stop.
That's
That's
amazing.
that's how I kind of see it. But yeah, just such an interesting journey. Is when you're like in your songs, like I was on a boat, took off, and cycles season as it progressed, which was dope. And by the time you kind of closed out on it, it's like, wow, I really gotta talk to myself inside and a little more open. So it's really dope that you come to like more realization at the end of the journey. And I feel like a lot of albums track of it, it's kind of just drop singles and it doesn't no substance.
Mm.
So when they say, "Oh, it's an album," I just sometimes the time I just see a collection of I don't see any not like it's a commu we're just gonna scatter songs together, call it a
Yeah, I've never been able to create an album without there being a storyline, but maybe it's because of my background in writing short fiction and creative writing. Like I went to school for that, so and I've always enjoyed albums more than I've liked singles. And I'm releasing singles this year, and yet it becomes it becomes a collection of three songs because I just can't help it. Because I feel like I that's the way I write. I write in a full story, like it's a full story, and I think one song can be a full story. But I think a collection of songs can be a deeper story. And like I said, I'm here for depth. I like love deep stories. I love deep roots. And I think that you can skirt the top of a subject, sure. Do I skirt subjects? Not really, because that's just not how I exist. I constantly am feeling extremes. So I'm feeling like really joyful, or when I feel sad, I feel really sad. And I've always been like that since I was a little kid. So I think that comes through in my art, that it's me taking this extreme way of being that I have and then finding some packaging to put it in, right?
Right.
That is ingestible by people, and sometimes not ingestible, right? I'm not responsible for whether or not people can digest my work. However, I mean, of course, I would love it if everyone could digest my work and got something powerful from it, but it's not really my business what people think of my work. I'm just here to share it. I hope that it heals people. Absolutely. I hope that by sharing myself so openly and by being expressive and being free, that it inspires other people to do that. Do I trigger people? I'm sure. I can't please every audience member as much as I might want to. My ego wants to please everyone. But ultimately, when I'm creating things and when I'm sharing it, it's because there was a voice in my head or an experience I had that I felt there must be someone else out there who feels this way too. And so for that one person, I'm going to share this thing and we'll see.
It's Mike. That's fun. No, that was really deep. That was good. I appreciate you letting me open my eyes because while you were saying that, I'm like, maybe you should think about that. Just being a little more vulnerable and thinking about. Um, I have the last question I had for you was, do you have any proud moments in?
I think the proud moment was me deciding to share two more, because initially it was just going to be one voice note and then I was going to release my more produced work.
Okay.
And my producer who made my last album, I reached out to him, I shared the song with him, and he was really excited about it. And I said, "Oh, and the next song that you and I made will come out in June." And he was like, "Well, why don't you do a few more?" He's like, "Why are you rushing to release this produced work, like this more produced work? Why don't you make a few more? It's You can record it pretty easily yourself." Like, and at first I was resistant to that idea because I really want to release the other work. Truthfully, I'm really excited about the other songs. It's really hard for me. I recorded the first one that's coming out in September. I recorded it in January, so I've been sitting on it for months.
Oh wow.
And it's hard for me to do that because I always want to share things immediately. But I'm sitting on it, and he knows what the song sounds like, and he was just. I'm thankful. My friend Ryan was like, "Hey, like this is a cool idea. I think you should go with it." So I'm really proud of the fact that I'm sharing three songs recorded on my phone and doing so with the idea that I have really powerful messages that I hope to share. And whether it's highly produced or just a voice note, I want these things to be heard by people. And I hope that it helps somebody. So I'm proud of the ability. First of all, I'm proud that I have the freedom to do this, first of all. But I'm also like proud of getting out of my own way and letting myself create these things because as I was writing this music and recording it myself here, I feel like I healed in a way. I didn't necessarily heal. I remembered who I came here to be. And who I came here to be doesn't care if it's a voice note or if it's a fancy recording. The person I came to be wants to share openly and to tell real stories. So I hope that my real story resonates with somebody. But honestly, sometimes it's just the fact that you like overcame an obstacle within yourself. And I think that's what happened for me with these songs.
So essentially, that proud moment is letting those songs out, making more songs, keep on. Granted, you still have your. This is there's no. It's essentially. I want to say it's kind of like a selfie without the filter aspect. Just kind of pushing it out there, like this is what I look like. I am.
That's exactly the perfect way to put it. Is that this is a song with no filter. This is what my voice sounds like. This is what my hands sound like on the guitar. This is what I sound like with no reverb whatsoever.
Right.
This is what I sound like when I'm in my room playing in my favorite place in the world. This is what I sound like. If you like it, great. If not, I feel that I've done something that I'm proud of, which is showing you guys who I am. No filter. I mean, the songs really have no filter, and that's scary, but it's also super empowering because I feel like when the more produced stuff does come out, like who knows? Maybe people won't even like it. Maybe people will be like, "Hey,
I
release
like this
more voice."
unfiltered. This is way better.
And I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm curious. Absolutely, I'm curious. Like now, um, the song comes out next week on the 21st, and I have no idea. That's the most exciting part about releasing music is or anything is you just don't know what will happen and the song is called Let It Happen, so I'm just letting it happen. And I'm excited. I'm I'm not as nervous today. I mean, talk to me next Thursday. I will probably be a little more nervous, maybe. Who knows? But
Right, especially after a drop. Cause I'm supposed to be dropping a magazine in about 4 days, so it's just like, oh, here we go. Granted, it's done, but it's like that initial drop. Like, here we go. It's like dropping a giant rock in the water and then it's waiting for the ripples to come right
yeah.
back. So,
Well, and it's there's always a come down after you release anything,
oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's out, and then obviously, you just want to keep on reposting and then letting people know. Sometimes people forget after the drop, and I keep telling people like, listen, you got to keep posting same song times. I guarantee you, there's like 7 billion people in the world. 7 billion people have not heard your song yet, so you still gotta.
Yeah, and I struggle with that sometimes because I've already moved on to like 10 projects ahead before. I've definitely already 10 projects ahead in my mind, always ahead. But the way I put it for the brands that I manage is we're telling the same story 1,000 times. How
Right.
can we tell this story in a different way? How can we excite people? And I think the thing is that people mistake. I think that this is changing. I think there's this big focus on branding. Like your branding has to be super crisp and everything has to be super professional.
Hmm.
And yeah, but I think people can also tell when you're being fake and when you're just doing something for branding. People can tell and you can tell. So I think that what's interesting about social media now and even releasing singles or releasing music, art, anything, energy is felt.
Even through a
And
screen.
even through a screen, you can feel the vibe. And if someone, I only post when I'm really excited about something, and I'm excited about things all the time. So I post a lot. But I and mostly it's just like, "Oh, I saw this thing that was cool. I'm going to share it. Oh, I made this thing today because I was inspired. I'm going to share it." I'm not really thinking that deeply about like what's my brand direction, or and maybe I could, I don't know. I think that's so unnatural for me to follow this capitalist idea of like it has to fit into these grid boxes, and if it doesn't then it's not valuable. I think that that is BS fully, and I don't fit in boxes, period.
Neither should a
So
lot of people. They shouldn't conform to things that are, especially. That's why when magazine stuff, to be like, I had to pull myself back because I'm getting in. And then when I stopped
mhm,
myself, I realized, like, why don't you put this out for you if you read this like about something. So I decided magazine started that last year journal. So talk about like it's like I just journaling the shoot. I was focusing on this blank like little like I took that notes that I took before magazine. It's like I should have been instead of just looking. All right, what's Vogue doing? What's W magazine? Like it was just a lot of stuff that I was like I had to. Magazine is literally called "I Am Zain." Magazine. I shouldn't be focused on other brands. It's just like what's the message that I'm trying to get across. So the coffee and critique also helped that aspect too. Like essentially, this is the main core was to like showcase like up and coming talent. And I was like, I should have started this years ago. So this is perfect that the quarantine kind of initiated me to do this. I'm like, I'm glad it like the coffee and critique it because I would have never out to you and this would have never would have happened. I'm glad it
yeah.
happened.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you interviewed me last year, because I think that you were the first person in a long time to interview me, and you were the first person to interview me like this, because we're not in person
Right.
anymore, or we haven't been, and we don't know each other that well, but we know each other from Instagram. And so, one thing I will say that's positive about social media, and I don't think that the things I was saying were negative, but they were just I was critiquing
Right.
these systems that we're a part of. I'm wholeheartedly, we all are a part of these systems. Like we cannot remove ourselves fully. We have to just be aware of our relationship to these systems, right?
Right.
But since since I made the world my stage, since Instagram was my stage this last year, the beautiful thing that has happened is I have friends now from all over the world.
Right.
And I feel so excited about that, because I was having legit conversations with people, and I still am having legit conversations with people who I also love their work. And same thing with you. Like I get to be your biggest fan now, because we know each other from the internet, and because life slowed down significantly, and that allowed me to like actually build super amazing friendships with people that I wouldn't have otherwise know.
Right. So there's a way to kind of Instagram as a tool work for you
Hmm.
positive by it's
Exactly.
how you kind of build it to be. Like you could turn Instagram into like dark side, or turn light side. Up to
Yeah.
you.
Well, and they say there's this term, it's Carl Jung. There's this term called transcendent function, which is we have the light of existence and we have the darkness. And artists tend to like lean on one or the other, extremes, like myself, extremes. But they say that the third thing, what transcends the light and the darkness, is the light and the darkness come together, and then it creates art. So that's the third thing that is birthed from the light and the darkness. So we're bridging the gap between the two. And I think with anything, I mean, even if we're talking about the songs that are coming out, I feel like I very much acknowledge, oh, like I'm overthinking right now. And this is just part of being human. So I accept myself. It's not being like, you know, overly precious or overly critical. It's being like, okay, this is happening right now. I'm scared. I still love myself,
That's it.
even
That's
though
the
I'm having
message.
this experience. Even if I'm having anxiety, even if I'm having depression, even if I'm sad, even if I'm afraid that I'm going to get my heart broken, I can still love myself even in that.
That's some. See, I tell everybody, love yourself. Wait for someone else to love you. Glad you said that. I'm here one more time.
Love yourself. And that's a really, I think sometimes people don't know what that means. And I'm still learning what that means for me because loving myself is a constant practice. It's a muscle that I'm developing of like empathy and compassion and self awareness. And the more that I do it, the more that I focus energy on learning how to love even the parts of myself I don't like or the parts of myself I would deem unlovable. When I can learn to love those parts of myself, then I might have an opportunity to change.
Right. Just gonna have like a little mic drop, little meter on the side. Just a little counter.
I'm thankful that you hear and understand and appreciate what I say enough to drop the mic.
So, is there anything that you want to let the audience know about projects or where they can follow you?
Okay, so you can follow me at Brooke D Music on Instagram. I have Facebook as well. I don't update that as much, but mostly Instagram, I would say. I have TikTok as well. Again, something that I don't really update. I'm currently working on releasing singles for the next, like, till the end of the year. I'll be releasing music almost every month, which is exciting. And I'm working on an album and another book as well. And that will come out next year, 2022. It'll be a big year, 2022.
Sweet.
And yeah, I mean, overall, you'll be able to hear my new single, Let It Happen, on all platforms on May 21st. And I'm super excited to share these love notes with you. And I hope they touch people. That's really my goal. I hope that people gain something that they needed, like some medicine or something.
Right. Listen, I'm all for it. As soon as you drop it, I will be sharing multiple times. Uh,
Thank you,
I
Zain.
appreciate your music. So because during the close of the show, I usually ask people, what do you want to shout out uh, that you think is dope? Whether it's a book, show, or just anything for that.
Hmm. Just like another artist or
Yeah,
something that
you could shout out
I
another artist.
Hmm. You know what? I'm gonna shout out. There's this book that I'm reading, and I haven't stopped reading it. I finished it last week, and I'm continuing to read it. It's called 7,000 Ways to Listen by Mark Nepo,
Okay.
and I think everyone needs to read that book. That's my opinion. It's about learning how to be present and learning how to listen. And yeah, I'd like to shout out that book because it's really gotten me through a lot of challenging times recently. So I hope that helps someone else.
So I'm definitely gonna put that in my Amazon list. How thick is the book? Is it this or?
Oh, no, it's like this. It's like this. It took me like a month and a half to finish it.
Oh, perfect.
Reading one chapter a day.
Got it. Got it. That's awesome. For me, I'm definitely gonna recommend No Surprise, Something in the Sky. Y'all better read this book. You better order it. You need to follow her on IG and you need to order this. Something in the Sky. All right.
Thank you, Zain. You're the best.
No problem. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in again, Brooke. And you'll be hearing her very soon. All right. So adios.
Trap, money, penny.